Alright, let's get started. Picture this, year 2150. Humanity has conquered the solar system and the dream of interstellar travel has finally become a reality. We've traveled to Mars, established colonies on the moon, and sent robots to explore distant moons and planets. But even after all that, the question remains, is there life out there? Could there be another Earth, a place we could one day call home? That's where Kepler-452b comes in. Discovered over a century ago, Kepler-452b, often called Earth's cousin, sits in the habitable zone of its star, meaning it could have the right conditions for life. It's about 1,400 light-years away, in a distant part of the Milky Way, orbiting a star almost identical to our Sun. For decades, scientists have looked at this distant planet with hope, hoping that, one day, we'd be able to reach it. And now, after generations of preparation, the mission to Kepler-452b is finally happening. But this journey isn't just about science, it's about survival. It's about what happens when humanity pushes beyond its limits. What will we discover? What will we become in the process? The story of the Kepler-452b mission isn't just about a spaceship heading to a distant world. It's about the people who made it possible. The explorers who have risked everything to be the first to travel to a new home. The ones who've been training, preparing, and dreaming for this moment their whole lives. Today, we begin a journey. One that takes us to the farthest reaches of space, where the unknown is just waiting to be discovered. This isn't just a story of technology or science, it's a story about what it means to be human. So, let's set the stage for the journey of a lifetime, the journey to Kepler-452b. Now, before we dive into the mission itself, let's take a step back and look at how we got here. The journey to Kepler-452b didn't just happen overnight. It all started with a simple yet profound question. Are we alone in the universe? For centuries, humans have looked up at the stars, wondering if there's another planet out there that could sustain life like ours. In the 21st century, that question became a bit more than just a philosophical one. It became a scientific pursuit. Space agencies around the world, private companies and research institutions, launched mission after mission to find planets outside our solar system, exoplanets. The goal was clear: find planets that could have the right conditions to support life, just like Earth. One of the most significant breakthroughs came in 2009, when NASA launched the Kepler Space Telescope. Kepler was designed to search for Earth-like planets in the habitable zone, the sweet spot around a star where conditions are just right for liquid water to exist. For over 9 years, Kepler scanned thousands of stars, looking for any signs of planets that could potentially support life. And then in 2015 it happened. Kepler discovered Kepler-452b, an Earth-sized planet orbiting a star very similar to our Sun. It was the closest thing we had ever found to Earth. But, of course, finding a planet is just the beginning. Imagine the excitement, but also the challenges. Kepler-452b is about 1,400 light-years away, which means we'd need a spaceship capable of traveling farther than anything we've ever built. And even if we could reach it, we had no idea if it was actually habitable. No one could be sure if it had an atmosphere, or water, or life. So, the search for planets didn't stop with Kepler-452b. Over the next several decades, astronomers and scientists kept looking, using better telescopes, new technologies, and more advanced methods. We discovered thousands of exoplanets, some of them in the habitable zone, some of them close to Earth in size. It was clear, there were more planets out there, just waiting to be explored. But Kepler-452b, with its Earth-like characteristics, remained one of the most promising. It became a symbol of hope, the potential new home for humanity. And that's when the conversation shifted. Scientists began asking themselves, what if we could go there? What if we could turn this dream into reality? Could we send a crew across space to see what Kepler-452b has to offer? That's when the planning for the mission to Kepler-452b truly began. But this wasn't just about sending a spaceship out there, it was about building a new future. the journey would take hundreds of years, meaning future generations would carry the torch. It wasn't just a scientific challenge, it was a human challenge. Would humanity be ready for a journey that would span centuries or even longer? Alright, so now we know why Kepler-452b is so important. But how do we actually get there? Let's think about that for a moment. Traveling to another star system, let alone 1,400 light-years away, sounds like science fiction, right? But in 2150, this dream has become a reality. The technology we have now didn't just appear overnight, it's the result of over a century of advancements in space travel, engineering, and science. Let's rewind a bit. If you look at the history of human space exploration, it's actually pretty mind-blowing how far we've come. In the 20th century, we were still figuring out how to send astronauts to the moon. Remember the Apollo missions? Those were groundbreaking, of course, but they didn't have the technology we would need for interstellar travel. The thought of reaching another star was, well, almost impossible, but we knew we had to start somewhere. Every mission, every satellite, every rover we sent out into space built on the lessons of the past. Fast forward to the late 21st century. NASA and other space agencies had begun focusing on Mars and the Moon in more ambitious ways, establishing permanent colonies and mining resources. It wasn't just about exploration anymore, it was about creating sustainable living on other worlds. Along the way, private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin also helped push the envelope, developing reusable rockets and new spacecraft designs that drastically cut the cost of space travel. But all of that was just the beginning. As the years went on, one of the most significant breakthroughs was in propulsion technology. In the 22nd century, the development of the fusion drive completely revolutionized space travel. Traditional rockets powered by chemical fuel would never get us anywhere near the speed we'd need for interstellar journeys. Fusion drives, on the other hand, allowed spacecraft to travel at a fraction of the speed of light, making long-term space travel across light years possible. These drives used a process that mimicked the sun's energy, releasing massive amounts of power, allowing ships to travel much faster and farther than ever before. But it wasn't just about propulsion. Life support systems also had to evolve. The farther we go, the harder it is to rely on Earth for supplies. That's why by the time the Kepler-452b mission was conceived, we had perfected closed-loop ecosystems. These are self-sustaining systems that recycle air, water, and food. Imagine living on a spacecraft for hundreds of years with only a handful of people and yet never running out of supplies. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. Then there's artificial gravity, which is a game changer. Without it, long space voyages would lead to muscle and bone deterioration. And that's just one of the many health risks. By 2150, we had perfected artificial gravity aboard starships, allowing the crew to live and work in a more Earth-like environment for the duration of the trip. But the true heart of the mission was the technology on board the ship itself. In addition to advanced propulsion and life support, there was AI. Powerful artificial intelligence systems that could handle navigation, manage the ship's operations, and even help with scientific research. These AIs weren't just tools, they were essential crew members in their own right. They could make decisions, analyze data, and, in some cases, even interact with the crew on a personal level. These technological advancements didn't come easy, though. Each step forward took decades of trial and error, failures and successes. But here we are in 2150 with the technology to send humans to Kepler-452b. It's not just the result of breakthroughs in propulsion, AI, and life support, it's the culmination of generations of dreamers, engineers, and scientists who push the boundaries of what's possible. And as we prepare for the mission ahead, it's not just about the technology that got us here, it's about what's still to come. The challenges we'll face on the journey to Kepler-452b will test everything we know about space travel and human endurance. But that's the thing about exploration, right? It's never easy. It's about pushing the limits of the known and stepping into the unknown. Alright, so we've got the technology, we've got the ship, and we know where we're going. But what about the people? The mission to Kepler-452b isn't just about sending a spacecraft out into the stars, it's about the brave crew members who will spend the next few centuries aboard that ship. This mission is as much about human endurance as it is about technology. Choosing the crew wasn't an easy task. These astronauts weren't just highly trained scientists, engineers, or medical officers, they had to be something more. They had to be resilient, adaptable, and mentally strong enough to handle the isolation, the uncertainty, and the sheer length of the journey. You're talking about a crew that will be on this ship for over 200 years, passing down the torch to future generations. This isn't just a one-and-done mission. This is a multi-generational journey. The selection process was intense. Imagine being chosen for a mission that you know will outlast your own lifetime. The crew members were handpicked from all over the world, selected not only for their skills, but for their ability to work together as a tight-knit team. It's crucial that they get along, because let's be honest, with no other humans around for light years, they're going to need to rely on each other like never before. Training for the mission was a multi-year process. It wasn't just about teaching the crew how to operate the spacecraft or perform scientific experiments. They also had to learn how to live in a confined, artificial environment. They practiced everything from emergency protocols to resource management, all while learning how to maintain their mental and emotional well-being. They had to adapt to living in a space where the outside world doesn't exist. In a place where you can't just step outside for a walk or take a break from the other. One of the biggest challenges was preparing them for the psychological effects of such a long journey. Living in space for years, isolated from Earth, could take a serious toll on mental health. In fact, one of the key aspects of the mission was training the crew to handle loneliness, isolation, and the pressure of being so far from home. They had to be ready to live in tight quarters, knowing that their journey would span multiple generations. Most of them would never see Earth again. It's not just a job, it's a commitment, a sacrifice. And let's not forget about the role of artificial intelligence on this mission. The ship itself would be partially run by AI, intelligent systems designed to assist the crew with everything from navigation to daily operations. But this wasn't just about efficiency. The AI was also designed to act as a companion of sorts. It could learn from the crew, interact with them, and help alleviate the psychological strain of being so isolated. In a way, the AI would become a member of the crew itself, guiding them through the journey, keeping them connected to their mission, and supporting their emotional well-being. Of course, the crew members also had to prepare for the unknown. While they were trained for every foreseeable scenario, no one really knew what they would encounter once they reached Kepler-452b. What would the planet be like? Would it have the right conditions for life? Could they even land there safely? It was a huge unknown, and yet, the crew had to remain calm, composed, and ready for anything. But, despite all the training, the unknowns were always going to be there. They knew that reaching Kepler-452b wasn't a guarantee of success. There were so many variables they couldn't control. But that's part of the spirit of exploration, right? You go into the unknown because it's worth it. You take risks because you want to know what's out there, even if it means facing the unknown head-on. And for the crew of the Kepler-452b mission, they weren't just exploring a new world. They were pioneering the future of humanity. Their courage, their commitment, their will to face the challenges ahead was what would ultimately make this journey possible. All right, the time has finally come. After years of training, preparation, and anticipation, the crew is ready to begin their journey to Kepler-452b. The spacecraft, a massive starship designed for interstellar travel, stands ready on the launch pad. It's the culmination of decades of work, and yet for the crew, it feels surreal. This isn't just another mission, it's the beginning of something that will span centuries. The last view of Earth, the only home they've ever known, will soon be nothing but a distant memory. As the countdown begins, the tension is palpable. This is no ordinary launch. This is the start of humanity's most ambitious mission. One that will take the crew 1,400 light-years away to a world they've only dreamed about. With each passing second, the reality of the journey begins to sink in. This isn't just about exploration anymore, it's about survival, it's about the future of the human race. The engines roar to life and the spacecraft lifts off from Earth's surface slowly at first, then with increasing speed. As the ship breaks through the atmosphere, the crew feels the weightlessness take over, the familiar pull of Earth's gravity fading away. There's a sense of awe in the crew's eyes as they look out the windows, seeing Earth shrink in the distance. It's hard to imagine that the planet they've spent their entire lives on is now just a tiny dot in the vastness of space. For the next several months, the crew will continue to get used to life aboard the starship. The transition from Earth's gravity to the artificial gravity of the ship is smoother than expected, but still, it's a strange feeling. In the beginning, there's a sense of excitement. Everything is new, everything is part of this grand adventure. But as they settle into their routines, the reality of the long road ahead begins to set in. The journey is going to be long, really long. The vastness of space is overwhelming, and there are moments when it feels like they're alone out here. Even with the crew and AI systems, the emptiness of space can be suffocating. For the first few months, the ship's systems are all working smoothly. The crew performs routine checks, runs scientific experiments, and spends time getting to know each other. They're getting used to life in a confined space, and while the ship is massive, it still feels like it's their entire world. The crew spends a lot of time learning how to manage their resources, maintaining the life support systems that keep them alive. After all, there's no going back. Once they're in deep space, they're on their own. The journey is one way, and the stakes couldn't be higher. In the early stages, there are moments when the crew can still communicate with Earth. Transmissions are delayed, of course, due to the vast distance. But it's a lifeline, a small reminder that they haven't completely left everything behind. The crew sends regular reports, letting mission control know that everything is on track. But as the months stretch into years, the transmissions start to feel less like a connection and more like a distant echo. The crew knows that at some point, they'll lose contact with Earth completely. There will be no more updates, no more news from home. It's a strange thought, but it's also a reality they've had to prepare for. The ship itself is a marvel of engineering. Powered by its fusion drive, it's capable of maintaining a steady, near-constant speed as it heads out into deep space. The AI on board runs most of the day-to-day operations, keeping everything running smoothly. The crew, however, still has to remain vigilant. Space is a dangerous place. Cosmic radiation, micrometeorite impacts, and even malfunctioning equipment are constant threats that they have to be ready for. But the crew knows they're prepared. Every possible scenario has been accounted for, and still, there's an undeniable sense of uncertainty that looms over them. As the journey continues, the crew starts to form deeper bonds. It's inevitable. In such a confined space with no one else to rely on, they become a family. They spend time together, laugh together, and face the challenges of space travel as a team. They share stories of Earth, of the places they've been, the people they've known, and the lives they left behind. It's a way to hold on to what's familiar, even as they travel farther and farther from home. But there are also challenges that go beyond just keeping the ship in one piece. The crew is far from perfect. With so much time spent together in close quarters, tensions can build. There are disagreements, moments of frustration, and times when the isolation becomes almost unbearable. But through it all, they have each other. And the mission, that's what keeps them going. The thought that they're part of something bigger than themselves. That they're not just exploring for the sake of exploration. They're paving the way for future generations. The human race is counting on them. Now let's talk about life aboard the starship. At first, everything seems like a well-oiled machine. The crew's training paid off. They've got their routines, they've got their tasks, and the ship's systems are running smoothly. But as the months stretch into years, the reality of long-term space travel starts to set in. Imagine living on a ship for decades with no real escape, no sense of time like you're used to on Earth. You're in space, the final frontier, but it feels like you're floating in an endless void. with only a handful of people to keep you company. It's a constant challenge to keep everyone mentally and physically healthy. The ship itself is designed to be self-sustaining. There's a state-of-the-art life support system that recycles air and water, and there are hydroponic gardens that grow food for the crew. Every day, the crew members work together to maintain these systems, checking the air filtration, tending to the crops, monitoring the ship's engines. They do it all, because without these systems working perfectly, the mission could fail. Artificial gravity helps, of course. Without it, the crew would be dealing with muscle atrophy and bone density loss. But even with that, space travel takes its toll. The lack of sunlight and the constant, low-level hum of the ship's machinery can make everything feel a little off. The crew does their best to recreate some semblance of normalcy. They've got simulated sunlight in their quarters to help with the circadian rhythm, and they've got exercise equipment to stay fit, but it's hard to truly feel like you're living a normal life when everything you see and do happens inside a ship. You can't go for a walk outside, you can't feel the breeze or listen to the sounds of nature. The world they've known is light years behind them, and the future ahead is completely unknown. There's also the social side of things. For the first few years, the crew is still adjusting to each other. They come from different countries, different backgrounds, and different walks of life. But as time goes on, they become a family. It's not always easy. With so much time together, there are moments of tension, of disagreements, and of loneliness. Some crew members struggle more than others. The isolation can get to them, and it's not just physical, it's emotional too. The psychological effects of being so far from Earth, so far from everyone and everything you've ever known, can be overwhelming. That's where the onboard AI comes in. It's not just there to manage the ship's systems, it's also there to help the crew deal with the psychological weight of their journey. The AI learns from the crew, adapts to their moods, and offers support when needed. It can suggest relaxation techniques, act as a sounding board for conversations, and even help mediate conflicts. It's more than just a tool, it's a companion. A reminder that even in the emptiness of space, the crew is not entirely alone. Despite the challenges, the crew remains focused on the mission. They've got a job to do after all. There's scientific research to be done, data to be collected, and experiments to run. The journey to Kepler-452b isn't just about getting there. It's also about the information they're gathering along the way. The crew studies the cosmic radiation that could affect the ship, the magnetic fields of distant stars, the behavior of distant planets. They're constantly learning, constantly gathering data that will help future missions, and humanity as a whole, make the next step in the journey. But there are moments of joy too, small victories in their day-to-day lives. When the hydroponic garden produces its first successful crop, or when the AI completes an upgrade that makes life a little easier. These little successes help the crew stay positive. It's these moments that remind them why they're doing this. That they're part of something bigger than themselves, and that their work will lay the foundation for humanity's future in the... And then, there are the moments of connection. When a crew member plays a song on the guitar, or when they all gather for a meal together, they celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, and milestones. They find ways to make the time go by. They even have holographic entertainment so they can watch movies, play games, or take virtual walks in nature. It's a way to hold on to their humanity, to remind themselves of the world they came from, and to keep a sense of normalcy in a place that, at times, feels anything but. But even in the midst of all these routines and distractions, there's always that quiet undercurrent of uncertainty. The crew knows they're on the edge of the unknown. They're traveling to a world that no one has ever set foot on before. And even though they've trained for this for years, they have no idea what to expect once they arrive. What will Kepler-452b be like? Will they be able to land safely? What kind of world are they headed toward? These questions hang over them, but they don't let it stop them. They have each other. They have their mission. And that's what keeps them going day after day, year after year, as they hurtle through space toward a new home. After years of travel, countless months spent in the endless void of space, and the wear and tear of isolation and routine, the crew finally starts to see the light at the end of the tunnel. The starship is nearing Kepler-452b, and the excitement aboard is palpable. The moment they've been waiting for, the moment humanity has dreamed about for centuries, is finally within reach. But as they approach the planet, the crew knows that the real work is just beginning. As the starship gets closer to Kepler-452b, the team begins their final preparations. The planet has been studied from a distance for years, its orbit, its star, the potential for an atmosphere. But now, they'll see it up close, and no amount of data can truly prepare them for the reality. There's an undeniable sense of awe as they watch the planet grow larger on the ship's view screen. It's Earth-like, but different. Blue oceans, swirling clouds, and land masses stretching out below. It's beautiful, almost hauntingly so. The first challenge they face is orbital insertion. Kepler-452b's gravity is a bit stronger than Earth's, so the crew has to adjust the ship's trajectory carefully to make sure they don't overshoot or crash. They've been preparing for this moment for decades, but nothing can prepare you for the tension of being the first humans to navigate around a new world. There's a quiet intensity in the cockpit as the crew works together, double-checking everything, communicating in short, precise sentences. Every decision is critical, and one small mistake could be disastrous. Once the ship is in orbit, the real work begins. The crew's first priority is to scan the atmosphere and surface of Kepler-452b. They're looking for signs of life, signs of habitability. Will the air be breathable? Will they be able to land safely? The team sends out probes to collect data, running tests on the atmosphere, the water, and the soil. Every detail matters, and they know that the future of this mission depends on getting these initial readings right. It's a nerve-wracking wait. The crew watches the data streams come in, checking the results, looking for any red flags. The atmosphere turns out to be similar to Earth's, oxygen-rich, with a balanced mix of gases that suggests the possibility of plant life. The water seems abundant, and the temperature is just right. There's no immediate sign of dangerous radiation or anything that would make the planet uninhabitable. For the first time in years, the crew lets out a collective sigh of relief. But even though everything seems promising, there's still the question of landing. They can't just assume that because Kepler-452b looks good from orbit, it's safe to touch down. The crew has to take into account terrain, weather patterns, and even potential risks like volcanic activity or atmospheric storms. They also need to figure out where to land, ensuring they have access to water and safe resources for the long term. The mission control team, back on Earth, is anxiously awaiting the first landing attempt. They've been following the ship's progress, but now they're essentially spectators in the greatest gamble humanity has ever taken. The world is holding its breath, knowing that this landing will define the future of the human race. The crew, however, doesn't have the luxury of second-guessing. They've trained for this moment. It's time to take the next step. After a long deliberation, the crew decides on a location, a flat, open area near what appears to be a large freshwater lake. The land seems stable, and there are no immediate signs of any significant geological instability. The crew prepares to begin the descent, and the tension builds again. The landing process will take hours, and it's not without risk. The ship's landing gear, designed for this type of planet, is sturdy, but the crew knows better than to assume anything is certain. They've made it this far, but the journey isn't over yet. As they begin their descent, the view of Kepler-452b is mesmerizing. The ground below is a patchwork of green and blue, and the lake sparkles in the sunlight. The clouds swirl overhead, casting shadows over the landscape. For the crew, this is the moment they've been waiting for, when all the training, all the sacrifices, all the years of preparation come together. The landing is slow, methodical. The crew makes small adjustments, carefully controlling the descent. They're closer now, so close they can see the details of the terrain, rocky outcroppings, patches of what could be vegetation, and the shimmering surface of the lake. The AI system assists in navigating the final steps, helping to stabilize the ship as they touch down. The moment they land, there's silence, a deep, overwhelming silence. It's the sound of history being made, They've touched down on a new world, one that could be the future of humanity. The crew exchanges looks of disbelief, relief, and awe. For a moment, everything seems to pause. It's a moment where they realize the enormity of what they've just accomplished. But there's no time to waste. The mission has just entered a new phase. The crew's focus shifts instantly from celebration to preparation. There's work to do, tests to run, samples to collect, data to analyze. But, for now, the first step has been taken. They've landed on Kepler-452b, and the next chapter of humanity's story has just begun. First things first, exploration. The crew can't just sit in the ship and call it a day. They need to learn as much as they can about their new surroundings. Over the next few weeks, they set out on foot, venturing into the alien landscape around them. The planet may look similar to Earth, but there's always something new to discover. Different plants, unfamiliar animals, strange rock formations, they document everything. They have their scanners, their tools, and their curiosity, but even with all their preparation, they don't know what to expect. Each step is a leap into the unknown. One of the most important tasks is determining whether the planet can sustain them long-term. The crew's first priority is to locate natural resources. Water, of course, is critical. Luckily, the lake they landed near looks like it's fresh water, and initial scans confirm it's safe to drink. That's a huge relief. But there's also soil to test, minerals to analyze, and energy sources to find. This isn't just about surviving, it's about building a community, creating a place where future generations can live and grow. They can't just rely on the ship forever. The resources on board won't last forever, and they know they'll need to find ways to live off the land. And then, there's the question of agriculture. The ship's hydroponic systems worked well for the journey, but the crew has to figure out if they can grow crops on the planet. They start experimenting with the soil, testing its pH levels, and determining if it has the right nutrients for farming. In the beginning, it's a bit trial and error. Some plants thrive, while others don't. It's a learning process, but it's crucial. They need to figure out what crops will grow, what can be cultivated for food, and what can be used to sustain them over the long haul. As the days go by, the crew establishes a base camp. They set up solar panels for energy and begin working on building more permanent structures. It's not easy. Everything they do has to be done with the utmost care and precision. They can't afford to make mistakes. Every tool, every piece of equipment, and every resource has to be used wisely. They don't know when the next shipment will come from Earth, and they don't know if they'll be able to get more supplies from anywhere else. This is it, they're on their own. They also have to deal with the local environment. The planet may seem hospitable, but that doesn't mean it's free from danger. They've already had a few close calls with wildlife. It's not that the animals are necessarily hostile, but many of the species they encounter are unlike anything they've ever seen before. Some are small, others much larger. Some have venomous bites, others are more curious than threatening. The crew learns quickly to be cautious. There's no telling what creatures could pose a risk to their safety. The AI helps, running simulations based on the data the crew collects and advising on how to avoid potential threats. As the crew settles into a routine, they begin to focus more on their long-term goals. Establishing a permanent colony, setting up scientific research stations, and creating a network of resources to ensure the planet can sustain them for centuries. They know that even though the first few months will be critical, the real work will take decades, if not centuries. It's all about laying the foundation for a future that could one day involve thousands of people. And that's where the big challenge lies: how to scale up. One of the major hurdles the crew faces is maintaining a stable population. Right now, it's a small group, just a few dozen people. But if this is going to be a long-term home for humanity, they'll need to grow. And growing a population from such a small group requires careful planning. They don't have the same luxuries as Earth, where population growth is managed through cities, medical systems, and large-scale infrastructure. Here they'll have to make sure that each new generation is prepared for the realities of living on an alien world. This leads to another pressing issue: genetics and health. The crew can't just rely on Earth's resources for medical care. They need to be self-sufficient. The AI helps monitor their health, But there's also a team of medical experts among the crew who begin working on genetic research. The goal is to ensure that the new generations born on Kepler-452b can grow up with strong immune systems and healthy bodies. It's an incredible responsibility, because the decisions they make now will have a lasting impact on future generations. And then there's the larger question: how do they stay connected to Earth? As the years go on, communication with Earth becomes more and more delayed. What was once a matter of seconds or minutes turns into hours, then days, then weeks. The crew knows that eventually they'll be completely cut off. But they also know that they can't let that stop them. They have to keep moving forward, even if it means charting a completely new course for humanity, one that isn't tied to Earth. In the years that follow, the crew continues to build, explore, and innovate. They're not just surviving anymore. They're creating something new, something exciting, something that could one day represent the future of humanity. Kepler-452b may be just the first step in a much larger journey, but it's a journey that will shape the human race for generations